lovely, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
There we go, okay. Welcome to Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. I'm the Reverend Christian Schmidt, the interim minister of this congregation. As I say each week, whether this is your first time with us or your 1001st, or on today, your first time in a while perhaps, we want you to know that you are welcome and we are glad to have you. Our church offers Sunday services both in person and virtually. Whether you're here in the chapel or joining us from home, you are welcome here. We gather to recommit ourselves to the mission of this church, which is to support one another in our spiritual journeys, to work for justice, to care for the earth, and to build the common good. It is good to be together. This is a community dedicated to welcoming the stranger, working for justice, and building beloved community. To that effort, we remember and name the original indigenous inhabitants of this land, the Piscataway, the Powhatan, and the Toques. And we remember and acknowledge those enslaved people who lived and worked on these lands. Our work to dismantle systems of oppression toward a more just future continues. I do have several quick announcements today. The first is that it's my mistake. There's a mistake on the order of service. We are not singing the children out. There is nothing to sing them out to. But afterwards, of course, another announcement will be that we are having our annual Easter egg hunt. It will start approximately 11:15. That is a little bit after service is really the time for that. And I'm told we will gather on the terrace, I believe. So make your way, not too quickly, but out there after service. I have a very special announcement I want to invite forward Donna Gold for.
Good morning, Mount Vernon Unitarian. I have to read because I forgot my name. I'm Donna Gold, and I've had the honor of serving as the chair of the Settled Minister Search Committee over the past year. I want to recognize all the members of the committee and ask that they stand when I say their name. Tony Barkoom, I didn't take attendance, so I don't know if everybody's here. He was the committee vice chair, is the committee vice chair. Oscar Castro, Carolyn Evangelista, Tom Griffin, Laura McCleary, I don't think she's here, and Evan Wallach. Thank you all so much for your hard work.
Thank you.
Today we are thrilled to inform you that we have a candidate for you. Not only that, we have a wonderful candidate for you. Some of you have seen the email announcement sent out on Thursday, and there was a video introduction sent out yesterday. You can't sneak in, Oscar. We just recognized you. But for those who haven't seen those announcements, haven't checked their emails, our chosen candidate is the Reverend Ian White Maurer. There's really too much to say about him for the short time I have, so I highly encourage you to take a look at the descriptive announcement and the video in your email box and on our website and Facebook page to get greater details. Let me just say that we are so thrilled to have walked the wonderful path that led Reverend Ian to us and us to him. We believe that he will not only bring love and caring to his ministry here, but will support us in extending that love and caring beyond this holy hill and into the wider community and the world. We encourage your participation in at least one event during Candidating Week, which begins Sunday, April 30th, with Reverend Ian in our pulpit, and ends on Sunday, May 7th, following his sermon, when members will vote on whether to call Reverend Ian to our congregation as settled minister. Keep your eyes open for further details about the events planned for that week. There are open events for all. In the meantime, let's get excited to greet Reverend Ian, and in the spirit of Easter, begin a renewal and a new adventure here at MVUC. Thank you.
Two other announcements. The first is to remind you of a concert that's happening here April 16th, so a week from today at 4 p.m., the Carrie Crable Choir and Orchestra Concert. I really encourage you to look to find out more about that in our communications and consider coming. And finally, a more serious announcement. Our thoughts are with Jim Kerr, our RE assistant here on staff. He's having a medical issue. It prevented him from working this weekend. We wish him all healing as soon as possible. In the meantime, our DRE Ann Richards, who is on sabbatical this spring, has volunteered to fill in at least this weekend to help make everything possible, including the egg hunt I already mentioned. So our thoughts are with him, and thank you to Ann, who's trying to quietly sit in the back there, but you can. In our service each week, and we'll do it very briefly today because we got a lot going on, we take a moment to greet one another, especially anyone you don't yet know well. So please take a moment to greet one another. I'll ring the chimes to bring us back together. A reminder to continue looking to our email newsletters on our website for more information about all we have going on. Know if you are ever in need, we are just a phone call or email away. Now let us turn our hearts and minds to worship with an introit from our choir.
That was beautiful. Our chalice lighting this morning was written by Elizabeth M. Strong. Out of the earth rises light, rises life, rises spring. May we join with the miracle that is springtime and enter into life with lightness and joy. Out of the Spirit rises faith, rises hope, rises love. May we join with the miracle that is Easter time and enter into life with hope and love. Let us resurrect with spring. Let us resurrect with the Spirit and enter into renewed life as we gather into our time of worship together this Easter morning. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 61, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again. Please remain standing as we unite our voices in the covenant of this community. I should warn you, I read this rather slowly. It helps me ponder each word, so I hope you'll bear with me. It can be found in the back flap of your hymnal or in the order of service. Love is the teaching of this church. The quest of truth is its daily task, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in community, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. This is our covenant with each and with all. Please be seated as we sing hymn number 220 in recognition of the Passover season, Bring Out the Festal Bread, number 220.
Thank
this time, we'd like to call the children forward for Time for All Ages. Can you grab me? Yep. Come on, sit down in the front right here. Just go ahead and sit right here, anywhere in the front. Go ahead, find a spot. You can take a look up here, but try to sit back just a little bit. Yeah. So thank you, everyone, for coming today on this beautiful spring day to join us as we celebrate the return of all the plants and the flowers and the trees. We have a story today called The Story of the Root Children. And the root children are all the plants that are coming back. And this is going to be an interactive story. We don't have a lot of space, but there's going to be a little bit of interactive bits. So when I tell you, you can go ahead and take an item if I give it to you, or if you don't want to participate, that's okay too. So, yes.
What does participate?
It means you can join in on what we're doing. So here is the story of the root children. Not yet. Go ahead and have a seat. By Sybil von Offers. Under the ground, deep in the earth, among the roots of the trees, the little root children were fast asleep all winter long. They didn't feel the biting wind, the cold snow, or the stinging hailstorms. They slept peacefully in their warm burrows. They were dreaming wonderful dreams of the sunshine in which they had played all through the summer. When at last winter came to an end, the sun began to melt the snow. Mother Earth came along with her candle to wake them up. Wake up, children, she called kindly. Time to get up now. You've slept long enough. Spring is coming and there's work to be done. I've brought you scissors, needles, and thread, and pieces of cloth so that you can all make new clothes. Wake up. As soon as you're ready, I'll unlock and open the doors to the ground. The children yawned and stretched. Can you yawn and stretch? And then they jumped up merrily, but we're not going to do that. Hooray, spring is coming! Mother Earth had pieces of lovely colored cloth in her basket. Each of the root children chose their own color to make a dress. The snowdrop chose a snow white cloth. The forget-me-not chose a sky blue piece. The buttercup, bright yellow. The daisy, white with yellow and a bit of red. And the poppy, a bit of red. They sat down in a cozy circle and began to work busily. They cut, sewed, and pressed until everything fitted perfectly. As they worked, they sang all the spring songs that they knew. So we're going to go ahead and sew our cloth. Go ahead and take one if you would like. Go ahead and take one.
This one is cool.
Who would like a long rainbow?
Can I have a long
Go ahead and hand one back.
Do I have a long rainbow? I want.
There's not a lot of long rainbow ones, but
Whoa, is this a?
here, can you hand that one back?
Whoa, do I have a long rainbow one?
Hand back, hand behind you.
Do I have a long rainbow one?
You do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sew our cloth. Cut and sew. We're making our beautiful gowns. These are going to be the colors of all the plants. As soon as they had finished making their new dresses, they went up to Mother Earth in a long procession. Mother Earth looked over her glasses in surprise when she saw the root children coming so soon. Well, well, you've been quick, she exclaimed. And how nice it all looks. even the little ants who had been helping Mother Earth to wind up her wool came to look inquisitively. They had never seen such splendid clothes. But there was still more to be done. The ladybirds, the beetles, the grubs, and the bumblebees had also been sleeping under the ground and had now woken up. They had to be washed and brushed, painted colorfully, and made to shine so they would look as beautiful as possible. What a hustle and bustle was going on down there. So we are going to paint our bugs. We don't have real bugs. These are just rocks.
Is this a cool one? Yeah. I have one purple. This is a cool one. I want to.
If you don't have one, we'll just pretend.
I want them.
So we're going to go ahead and paint our beautiful bugs. Beetles, ladybugs, all different colors. Go ahead and paint them with your paintbrush. Can you paint them like this?
I wanted the shiny one, and this,
Well, you have a gold one.
and this is a very shiny.
Above the ground, the warm sun was already bringing out the new green leaves on the trees. Would the root children be ready in time? At last it was springtime. Mother Earth opened the door, and out into the warm sunshine came a procession of beetles, ladybirds, and root children. So we are going to, just for a brief moment, let's put your insects, your beautiful beetles, ladybugs, all here on the display.
Next to the body.
And we're going to put on our beautiful clothes that we've made. And we're going to pretend we're walking outside into a big procession.
This is a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. Okay, now we're walking above ground. Let's go up and show everyone our beautiful colors. In the wood, the butterflies fluttered happily around the flowers. The lilies of the valley found a cool spot in the shade of the trees beside the blue violet and let their flower bells tinkle. Old Father Silslaff Slibberslack, that's a slug, came slowly creeping along. Aha, there you are. Welcome to the big forest, he said to the children. The little violet looked at him shyly from her safe place behind the tree. She had never seen a creature like him before. Summer came. In the little brook that flowed between the meadows, the water lily floated on the water like a princess. The reeds whispered in the wind. The forget-me-nots came and stepped carefully into the water. But the water beetles grumbled, "It's getting too crowded here. Go and play somewhere else." In the flower meadows, the root children were having lots of fun. They danced lightly in the warm sunshine, hop and skip. If only it could always be summer. The butterflies fluttered above them, and even the beetle had a little dance. The crickets chirped and the bees buzzed, making wonderful music together. Careful, little grass, don't fall over. But of course, summer came to an end. The sharp autumn wind whirled the brightly colored leaves through the air and tugged at the root children's clothes. "Whoo," called the wind. "Hurry home, it's getting cold, time for bed." So they all went back underground in a long procession. Mother Earth was standing by the door and hugged each child one by one. "Come in, children," she said, "and you too, beetles and bees. It's warm and cozy in here, and I've got something for you to eat and drink." Now we're going to take off your brightly colored clothes. And we're going to put them back in the basket. Thank you. And all the root children went down under the ground to start their long winter's sleep. That's it.
So can we cut some of the out?
Maybe later. Okay, let's all go back to our seats now. Oh, thank you for finding those.
We come now to the morning offering. At this time, MVUC asks each of us to show our spiritual and material generosity. I give because here at MVUC is where I found my spiritual home, my spiritual family. Each week, we share the plate with a charitable organization that you, our members, have chosen. This week's offering is shared with the South County Task Force. The South County Task Force is the only organization with the mission of advocating for equitable services and community development policies in the Route 1 community. It was formed in 1975 by MVUC member Ann Andrews. The organization has met for more than 45 years to educate, inform, and advocate for affordable housing, fair treatment of undocumented residents, health care, and other issues. Through its newsletter and position statements, it has influenced county policy and practice. I invite you to contribute whatever you're most comfortable with to the South County Task Force and to this church community. If you'd like to write a check for the offering, please make it to MVUC and in the memo line, indicate what it is for. You can also give to our website directly. We're grateful for your donation. During the offering, you're welcome to come forward in silence to light a candle of joy or sorrow. And now will the ushers please come forward for the morning offering.
I invite us all to take a moment to prepare ourselves for a time of silent reflection followed by spoken words. Just take a deep breath, perhaps, and join me in the silence. Our words today are from the Reverend Victoria Weinstein. She writes, "The stone has got to be rolled back from the tomb again and again every year. Roll up your sleeves. He's not coming back, you know. He's not coming back unless it is we who rise for him, we who lay healing hands on the reviled and rejected like he did on his behalf. We who rage for righteousness in his insistent voice. We who love the sinner even knowing that the sinner is no farther off than our own heartbeat. He will not be back to join us at the table to share God's extravagant banquet, God's love feast. All are invited. Come as you are. And so it is you and I who must feast for him, must say the grace and break the bread and pass it to the left and dish up the broiled fish or pour the wine and pass it to the right, and treat each one so tenderly as though just this morning they made the personal effort to make it back from heaven or from hell, but certainly from death, to be by our side. Because if by some miracle, and why not a miracle, he did come back, wouldn't he want to see us like this? Wouldn't it be a miracle to live for just one day, so that if he did by some amazing feat come riding into town, he could take a look around and say, "This is what I meant." And we could say, "It took us a long time, but we finally figured it out. Oh, let us live to make it so. For you are the resurrection and the life." And so may it be. I invite you to remain seated as we sing hymn number 274, "Dear Mother, Father of Us All."
Our reading this morning is Who Cares by Jeffrey A. Lockwood. In our modern age of apathy and egoism, there's cause for hope whenever people care about something beyond themselves. But there's more to being human than feeling deeply, for we risk becoming impassioned fools. Our minds must conspire with our hearts. We should care enough to think, and think with great care. No human endeavor shows the double-edged nature of caring like religion does, with its boundless capacity to foster our humanity and its vulnerability to thoughtless passion. In a world of suffering, to devote our spiritual energy to theological trifles is not just absurd, it is immoral. Yet we persist as if such details mattered. Who cares whether Jesus was divine if we treat the homeless man in the alley as less than human? Who cares whether God is omnipotent if we don't use our power to help others? Who cares whether the Bible's authors were divinely inspired if we write laws that are profane? Who cares whether there's a heaven if the hell of domestic violence burns next door? Who cares whether Mary was a virgin if we do not heed the cries of a woman being raped? Who cares whether we are saved when a child loses all hope? Who cares whether the earth was created in 7 days if 70 species disappear each day? The answer is, of course, that many people care about religious matters. And perhaps care, like love, is not a finite resource. Maybe some people have such a capacity for caring that their worries about God don't detract from their concern for people. But I'm not so blessed. So for everyone else like me, let us try to build a life in which we care about the things that matter most.
Every year people ask me in the weeks leading up to this particular Sunday, what are you doing for Easter? Is it going to be Jesus? Are we going to talk about spring, something else? How much Jesus will we talk about? To which I always think about that story about Mozart and Salieri, in which Salieri says, Mozart, there's too many notes. And Mozart goes, no, just enough. Hopefully I'll hit the just enough mark. But what a great UU question. What are we to make of this Easter thing? How seriously do we take the story of Jesus? And which story? Stories. And what relevance, to the question, the answers to those questions, what relevance does it have to a community like this with as many different beliefs as we have people? More, in fact. And what do we do about all of that? And then I think back to my theology professor in seminary, a noted theologian in the Presbyterian tradition named Cynthia Rigby. I came to her, Unitarian Universalist that I was, to ask about an assignment. I said, can I write about something other than Jesus? And she looked very thoughtfully for a minute, took her time, and she said, you know what? You're going to be a minister, and no matter what tradition you're in, someone is going to ask you what you think about Jesus. So you better figure out what you're going to say. And she, as almost always, was right. We live in a culture that is saturated with Christian thought and speech and ideas. Our very language shows this. Think of some of the everyday phrases we use, not even thinking that they come from the Bible, perhaps. Things like to cast the first stone, or an eye for an eye, by the skin of your teeth, to cast pearls before swine, eat, drink, and be merry, to fall by the wayside, to speak of feet of clay, or the writing on the wall, or a fly in the ointment, and so many more. More than that, our politics, our entertainment, our society are drenched in not just Christian, but a Western, usually Protestant version of Christianity, so much so that sometimes we don't even notice it. From the ways that we frame our justice system as one of punishing wrongdoers, or the way we celebrate successful people as if they have experienced some blessing the rest of us haven't. Or the fact that my kid's school cafeteria does not serve meat on Fridays during Lent because they know the Catholic students are not going to eat it. And there's a lot of Catholics where I live in Maryland. Now there's a fancy term for all of this, which is Christian hegemony, which is just the word for the overwhelming influence that Christianity, or Christian-related cultural things anyway, have on our larger, supposedly secular society. So again, what do we do about this? What do we do about all that Christian thought and perspective? We could ignore it, pretend that it doesn't need to matter to us. I'm afraid that also means leaving it to those who would misuse it for their own gains, though. Or, and I don't think there's any secret that this is my approach, we can engage with it, not because it's necessarily our beliefs, though for some here it is, but because there's a helpful counter-narrative, and one among many, that we can make to those who would misuse this. And this is where I get back to Jesus, because I actually think Jesus is very helpful on this front. He stands in a long line of prophets, both before him and after him, ancient and modern, who call us to better things, to reject materialism, to help others, to focus on what really matters in life and not just shiny distractions. He calls us to resist unjust government and laws, something that seems more relevant than ever. Now, how does he do this? Several ways. First, he is first and foremost a teacher. Jesus asks, depending on exactly how you count them, about 300 questions in the Gospels. Many of those questions are to his disciples. How many questions does he answer? It's a little bit of a difficult question to answer, weirdly. But the answer is definitely he answers a lot fewer questions than he asks. And if you really mean answer in the sense of giving a clear, direct response to a question, he does this almost never. He gives perhaps 3 direct answers in all of the writings we have. He rather tends to use something like the Socratic method, though it's not clear he knew about Socrates. He engages students with questions to get them to think. As we've talked about a few times, knowledge, education, people who can really think, those are scary and dangerous to those in power, and they should be. Second, a way that Jesus accomplished this is by casting a vision. He casts a vision in which all people are valued, a vision in which the differences and distinctions between us are not used to discriminate. He casts a vision of love and compassion and mercy and one of peace. And this is really important. But thirdly, what I want to talk about a little bit more in depth is that he resists in several ways. And despite the title of my sermon, which is Gentle Resistant, not all of them are actually gentle. He repeatedly engages in what we today call nonviolent resistance. The triumphal march into Jerusalem, which is an ironic and pointed protest against the way that foreign military and political leaders had marched in. He famously overturns the tables in the temple, angry that money changers have set up shop inside a holy place. And finally, when he is accused of crimes and threatened with death and ultimately killed, he doesn't really try to fight the charges, you might notice. Instead, he questions the legitimacy of the entire thing, the entire regime trying him. And the point I really want to make is that in none of these instances is Jesus passive. Nonviolence is sometimes painted as passivity, but it needn't be. When we talk about nonviolent resistance or nonviolent action, the words action and resistance are just as important as the nonviolent part. To quote the writer Walter Wink, he says, Jesus did not tell his oppressed hearers not to resist evil. That would be absurd. A proper translation of Jesus' teaching would then be, don't strike back at evil in kind. Don't retaliate against violence with violence. The scholar's version is brilliant. Don't react violently against the one who is evil. Jesus is no less committed to opposing evil than the anti-Roman resistance fighters. The only difference was over the means to be used, Wink says, how one should fight evil. There are 3 general responses to evil: passivity, violent opposition, and 3, the third way of militant nonviolence articulated by Jesus. Now, there are, of course, excellent, more contemporary examples of using nonviolent resistance to make change. One of my favorites is the work of Mohandas Ghandi in India, but particularly my very favorite example is his March to the Sea. You may or may not be familiar with it. British imperial rulers, in an action to protect the profitability of the salt industry, had outlawed Indians from making their own salt, which is a common practice thousands of years old. And Ghandi, in a classic example of nonviolent action, announced his intention to march 240 miles from the place where he lived to the sea, where he would then make his own salt. He effectively dared the British to stop him. His example, and many other examples, of course, his salt march sparked mass acts of civil disobedience across India, challenging British rule. You know other stories too, perhaps stories about Martin Luther King Jr. and many others working for civil rights. But one of my favorite examples from them is the Montgomery bus boycott. And the thing I think is most interesting about it is the way we talk about it. When I was taught about this, I thought about a boycott that went on for days or maybe weeks. Do you know how long the Montgomery bus boycott lasted? 13 months. which reminds me that it takes time to make change happen. Because people who support unjust status quos, they are very content to wait out revolutionaries. It's an important lesson for us to remember. I think, too, having spent time in California, especially of the work of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, who with the United Farm Workers organized mass strikes to improve conditions and pay. And again, the key word here is action. There was absolutely nothing passive about their approach. Or the work of the Solidarity movement in Poland that broke the power of Soviet-backed leaders in that country, peacefully beginning the overthrow of that regime. And today, the work of people like Greta Thunberg and Malala Yousafzai, forcing us to confront unpleasant truths about our world, very much in the style of the prophets of old, calling us to recognize things we don't want to recognize. To come back to Jesus for a moment, my very favorite thing Jesus says in all of the Gospels is from Matthew 10, verse 16. It's in the middle of a long speech of Jesus instructing his disciples about how to spread the word. But it's just a short part I'll tell you. He says, "Be ye therefore wise as serpents and gentle as doves." Be ye therefore wise as serpents and gentle as doves. Our Transylvanian Unitarian siblings use this passage to form part of the symbol of their faith, a dove encircled by a snake. I often remember this passage in my own work, that of course we have the power to effect great change, but that we have to be smart about it, and it is important to keep our commitment to peace and beloved community at the heart of what we do. So to answer the question from our incredible reading today, who cares? Well, it better be us. It better be me. It better matter that what we do in the world is the right thing, or at least the best we can. It better be that we're doing things that help others live more fully. And in today's world, that involves resistance. In our community, we believe in the nonviolent and often gentle kind of resistance. We believe in voting, in protesting, in strategic strikes and boycotts, in making our beliefs known. We believe in shaping the minds of young people to grow up, to become vibrant, concerned, dynamic citizens of our communities. So for whatever else he might be, and people around the world will be saying a lot of things about Jesus today, perhaps Jesus can be an example of this sort of resistance for us, of resisting the temptations of the world, of resisting unjust and unethical leadership that too many of our politicians display every day. An example of resisting the marginalization of our neighbors, our poor neighbors, our people of color neighbors, our homeless neighbors, our gay neighbors, our trans neighbors, our neighbors who are, in many cases, us. Because no matter how privileged or powerful any of us is, we're never far from the reach of oppression. Resist oppression, friends, for ourselves and for all people. And so may you go forth and employ some gentle resistance today, friends. Amen. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 270, O Day of Light and Gladness.
Please join in the words we say each week as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our benediction today comes from the Reverend Wayne Arneson. He writes, "Take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone." Please be seated for our postlude.